Chapter 16. The stampede to French Hill was on by the beginning of Christmas week. Corliss and Bishop had been in no hurry to record, for they looked the ground over carefully before blazing their stakes, and let a few close friends into the secret: Harney, Wells, Trethaway, a Dutch Chicago who had forfeited both feet to the frost, a couple of the mounted police, an old pal with whom Dell had prospected through the Black Hills country, the washerwoman at the Forks, and last and notably, Lucille. Corliss was responsible for her getting on the lay, and he drove and marked her stakes himself, though it fell to the Colonel to deliver the invitation to her to come and be rich. In accordance with the custom of the country, those thus benefited offered to sign over half interest to the two discoverers. Corliss would not tolerate the proposition. Dell was similarly minded, though swayed by no ethical reasons. He had enough as it stood.
"Got my fruit ranch paid for, double the size I was calculating on," he explained. "And if I had any more, I wouldn't know what to do with it, sure."
After the strike, Corliss took it upon himself as a matter of course to look about for another man, but when he brought a keen-eyed Californian into camp, Dell was duly wroth.
"Not on your life," he stormed.
"But you are rich now," Vance answered, "and have no need to work."
"Rich, hell," the pocket miner rejoined. "According to covenant, you can't fire me, and I'm going to hold the job down as long as my sweet will'll let me. Savvy?"
On Friday morning, early, all interested parties appeared before the Gold Commissioner to record their claims. The news went abroad immediately. In 5 minutes the first stampeders were hitting the trail. At the end of half an hour the town was afoot. To prevent mistakes on their property, jumping, moving of stakes, and mutilation of notices, Vance and Dell, after promptly recording, started to return. But with the government seal attached to their holdings, they took it leisurely, the stampeders sliding past them in a steady stream. Midway, Dell chanced to look behind. St. Vincent was in sight, footing it at a lively pace, the regulation stampeding pack on his shoulders. The trail made a sharp bend at that place, and with the exception of the three of them, no one was in sight.
"Don't speak to me. Don't recognize me," Dale cautioned sharply as he spoke, buttoning his nose strap across his face, which served to quite hide his identity. "There's a water hole over there. Get down on your belly and make a blind at getting a drink. Then go on by your lonely to the claims. I've business of my own to handle. And for the love of your brother, don't say a word to me or to the skunk. Don't let 'em see your face."
Corliss obeyed wonderingly, stepping aside from the beaten path, lying down in the snow, and dipping into the water hole with an empty condensed milk can. Bishop bent on one knee and stooped as though fastening his moccasin. Just as St. Vincent came up with him, he finished tying the knot and started forward with the feverish haste of a man trying to make up for lost time. "I say, hold on, my man," the correspondent called out to him. Bishop shot a hurried glance at him and pressed on. St. Vincent broke into a run till they were side by side again. "Is this the way?"
"To the benches of French Hill?" Dell snapped him short. "Bet your life. That's the way I'm headin'. So long."
He plowed forward at a tremendous rate, and the correspondent, half running, swung in behind with the evident intention of taking the pace. Corliss, still in the dark, lifted his head and watched them go. But when he saw the pocket miner swerve abruptly to the right and take the trail up Adams Creek, the light dawned upon him, and he laughed softly to himself. Late that night, Dell arrived in camp on El Dorado, exhausted but jubilant.
"Didn't do a thing to him," he cried before he was half inside the tent flaps. "Give me a bite to eat," grabbing at the teapot and running a hot flood down his throat. "Cookin' fat, slush, old moccasins, candle ends, anything."
Then he collapsed upon the blankets and fell to rubbing his stiff leg muscles, while Corliss fried bacon and dished up the beans.
"What about 'em?" he exulted between mouthfuls. "Well, you can slack your chips that he didn't get in on the French Hill benches. How far is it, my man?"
in the well-mimicked patronizing tones of St. Vincent.
"How far is it?"
with the patronage left out.
"How far to French Hill?"
weakly.
"How far do you think it is?" very weakly, with a tremolo which hinted of repressed tears. "How far?" The pocket miner burst into roars of laughter, which were choked by a misdirected flood of teeth, and which left him coughing and speechless. "Where'd I leave him?" when he had recovered. "Over on the divide to the Indian River, winded, plumb beaten, done for. Just about able to crawl into the nearest camp, and that's about all. I've covered 50 stiff miles myself, so here's for bed. Good night. Don't call me in the morning." He turned into the blankets, all standing, and as he dozed off, Vance could hear him muttering, "How far is it, my man? I say, how far is it?" Regarding Lucile, Corliss was disappointed. "I confess I cannot understand her," he said to Colonel Trethaway. "I thought her bench claim would make her independent of the Opera House." "You can't get a dump out in a day," the Colonel interposed. "But you can mortgage the dirt in the ground when it prospects as hers does. Yet I took that into consideration, and offered to advance her a few thousand, non-interest bearing, and she declined. She said she didn't need it. In fact, was really grateful, thanked me, and said that any time I was short to come and see her." Trethaway smiled and played with his watch chain. "What would you? Life, even here, certainly means more to you and me than a bit of grub, a piece of blanket, and a Yukon stove. She is as gregarious as the rest of us, and probably a little more so. Suppose you cut her off from the Opera House. What then? May she go to the barracks and consort with the captain's lady, make social calls on Mrs. Schoville, or chum with Frona? Don't you see? Will you escort her in daylight down the public street?" "Will you?" Vance demanded. "Aye," the Colonel replied unhesitatingly, "and with pleasure." "And so will I. But," he paused and gazed gloomily into the fire, "let's see how she's going on with St. Vincent. As thick as thieves they are, and always together." "Puzzles me," Trethaway admitted. "I can grasp St. Vincent's side of it. Many irons in the fire, and Lucile owns a bench claim on the second tier of French Hill. Mark me, Corliss, we can tell infallibly the day that Frona consents to go to his bed and board, if she ever does consent." "And that will be?" "The day St. Vincent breaks with Lucile." Corliss pondered, and the Colonel went on. "But I can't grasp Lucile's side of it. What she can see in St. Vincent." "Her taste is no worse than that of the rest of the women," Vance broke in hotly. "I am sure that—" "Frona could not display poor taste, eh?" Corliss turned on his heel and walked out, and left Colonel Trethaway smiling grimly. Vance Corliss never knew how many people, directly and indirectly, had his cause at heart that Christmas week. Two men strove in particular, one for him and one for the sake of Frona. Pete Whipple, an old timer in the land, possessed an Eldorado claim directly beneath French Hill, also a woman of the country for a wife, a swarthy breed, not over pretty, whose Indian mother had mated with a Russian fur trader some 30 years before at Kutlik on the Great Delta. Bishop went down one Sunday morning to yarn away an hour or so with Whipple, but found the wife alone in the cabin. She talked a bastard English gibberish which was an anguish to hear, so the pocket miner resolved to smoke a pipe and depart without rudeness. But he got her tongue wagging, and to such an extent that he stopped and smoked many pipes, and whenever she lagged, urged her on again. He grunted and chuckled and swore in undertones while he listened, punctuating her narrative regularly with hells, which adequately expressed the many shades of interest he felt. In the midst of it, the woman fished an ancient leather-bound volume, all scarred and marred, from the bottom of a dilapidated chest, and thereafter it lay on the table between them. Though it remained unopened, she constantly referred to it by look and gesture, and each time she did so a greedy light blazed in Bishop's eyes. At the end, when she could say no more, and had repeated herself from 2 to half a dozen times, he pulled out his sack. Mrs. Whipple set up the gold scales and placed the weights, which he counterbalanced with $100 worth of dust. Then he departed up the hill to the tent, hugging the purchase closely, and broke in on Corliss, who sat in the blankets mending moccasins. "I'll fix 'em yet," Dell remarked casually, at the same time patting the book and throwing it down on the bed. Corliss looked up inquiringly and opened it. The paper was yellow with age and rotten from the weather wear of trail, while the text was printed in Russian. "I didn't know you were a Russian scholar, Dell," he quizzed, "but I can't read a line of it." "Neither can I, more's the pity. Nor does Whipple's woman savvy the lingo. I got it from her. But her old man, he was full Russian, you know. He used to read it aloud to her. But she knows what she knows, and what her old man knew, and so do I." "And what do the three of you know?" "Oh, that's tellin'," Bishop answered coyly. "But you wait and watch my smoke, and when you see it risin', you'll know, too." Matt McCarthy came in over the ice Christmas week, summed up the situation so far as Frona and St. Vincent were concerned, and did not like it. Dave Harney furnished him with full information, to which he added that obtained from Lucille, with whom he was on good terms. Perhaps it was because he received the full benefit of the sum of their prejudice. But no matter how, he at any rate answered roll call with those who looked upon the correspondent with disfavor. It was impossible for them to tell why they did not approve of the man, but somehow St. Vincent was never much of a success with men. This, in turn, might have been due to the fact that he shone so resplendently with women as to cast his fellows in eclipse, for otherwise, in his intercourse with men, he was all that a man could wish. There was nothing domineering or overriding about him, while he manifested a good fellowship at least equal to their own. Yet, having withheld his judgment after listening to Lucille and Harney, Matt McCarthy speedily reached a verdict upon spending an hour with St. Vincent at Jacob Wells's, and this in face of the fact that what Lucille had said had been invalidated by Matt's learning of her intimacy with the man in question. Strong of friendship, quick of heart and hand, Matt did not let the grass grow under his feet. "'Tis I'll be taking a social fling myself, as befits a member of the notional Eldorado dynasty," he explained, and went up the hill to a whist party in Dave Harney's cabin. To himself he added, "And belike, if Satan takes his eye off his own, I'll put it to that young cub of his." But more than once during the evening he discovered himself challenging his own judgment. Probe as he would with his innocent wit, Matt found himself baffled. St. Vincent certainly rang true. Simple, light-hearted, unaffected, joking, and being joked in all good nature, thoroughly democratic. Matt failed to catch the faintest echo of insincerity. "May the dogs walk on me grave," he communed with himself while studying a hand which suffered from a plethora of trumps. "Is it the years are tellin', puttin' the frost on me veins and chillin' the blood? A likely lad. And is it for me to misjudge because his is a takin' way with the ladies? Just because the swate creatures smile on the lad and flutter warm at the sight of him? Bright eyes and brave men, 'tis the way they have of love and valor. They're shudderin' and shocked at the cruel and bloody deeds of war, yet who so quick do they lose their hearts to as the brave butcher by of a sojer? Why not? The lad's done brave things, and the girls give him the warm, soft smile. Small reason that for me to be callin' him the divil's own cub. Out upon ye, Matt McCarthy, for a crusty old sourdough, with vitals frozen and summer gone from your heart. 'Tis an ossification you've become. But bide a wee, Matt, bide a wee," he supplemented. "Wait till you've felt the fale of his flesh." The opportunity came shortly, when St. Vincent, with Frona opposite, swept in the full 13 tricks. "A ramps!" Matt cried. "Vincent, me lad, a ramps! Your hand on it, me brave!" It was a stout grip, neither warm nor clammy, but Matt shook his head dubiously. "What's the good iv botherin'?" he muttered to himself as he shuffled the cards for the next deal. "Ye old fool! Find out first how Frona darlin' stands. And if it's pat she is, then 'tis time for doin'." "Oh, McCarthy's all hunky," Dave Harney assured them later on, coming to the rescue of St. Vincent, who was getting the rough side of the Irishman's wit. The evening was over, and the company was putting on its wraps and mittens. Didn't tell you about his visit to the cathedral, did he, when he was on the outside? Well, it was suthin' like this, as he was explainin' it to me. He went to the cathedral during service, and took in the priests and choir boys in their surplices, parkas, he called them, and watched the burnin' of the holy incense. And do you know, Dave, he says to me, they got in and made a smudge, and there wa'n't a darn mosquito in sight. True, every word of it. Matt unblushingly fathered Harney's yarn. And did ye never hear tell of the time Dave and me got drunk on condensed milk? Oh, horrors! Cried Mrs. Scoville. But how? Do tell us. 'Twas during the time of the candle famine at 40 Mile. Cold snap on, and Dave slides into me shack to pass the time of day, and glues his eyes on me case of condensed milk. How'd ye like a sip of Moran's good whiskey? He says, eyeing the case of the milk while. I confess me mouth went wet at the naked thought of it. But what's the use of likin', says I, with me sack bulgin' with emptiness. Candles worth $10 the dozen, says he, $1 apiece. Will ye give 6 cans of milk for a bottle of the old stuff? How'll ye do it, says I. Trust me, says he. Give me the cans. 'Tis cold out of doors, and I've a pair of candle moulds. And it's the sacred truth I'm telling ye all, and if ye run across Bill Moran, he'll back me word, for what does Dave Harney do but lug off me 6 cans, freeze the milk into his candle moulds, and trade 'em into Bill Moran for a bottle of Tanglefoot. As soon as he could be heard through the laughter, Harney raised his voice. It's true, as McCarthy tells, but he's only told you the half. Can't you guess the rest, Matt? Matt shook his head. Bein' short on milk myself, and not over much sugar, I doctored 3 of your cans with water, which went to make the candles. And by the by, I had milk in my coffee for a month to come. It's on me, Dave, McCarthy admitted. 'Tis only that you're me host, or I'd be shockin' the ladies with your notorious disgraces. But I'll lave ye live this time, Dave. Come, spade the partin' guests. We must be movin'. No, you don't, ye young laddie buck, he interposed as St. Vincent started to take Frona down the hill. 'Tis her foster daddy sees her home this night. McCarthy laughed in his silent way and offered his arm to Frona, while St. Vincent joined in the laugh against himself, dropped back, and joined Miss Mortimer and Baron Courbertin. What's this I'm hearin' about you and Vincent? Matt bluntly asked, as soon as they had drawn apart from the others. He looked at her with his keen gray eyes, but she returned the look quite as keenly. How should I know what you have been hearing? She countered. When the talk goes round of a maid and a man, the one pretty and the other not unhandsome, both young and neither married, does it token aught but the one thing? Yes. And the one thing the greatest thing in all the world? Well? Frona was the least bit angry, but did not feel inclined to help him. Marriage, of course, he blurted out. 'Tis said it looks that way with the pair of ye. But is it said that it is that way? Isn't the looks of it enough? He demanded. No, and you are old enough to know better. Mr. St. Vincent and I, we enjoy each other as friends, that is all. But suppose it is as you say, what of it? Well, McCarthy deliberated, there's other talk goes round. 'Tis said Vincent is over thick with a jade down in the town. Lucille, they speak of her. All of which signifies? She waited, and McCarthy watched her dumbly. I know Lucille, and I like her, Frona continued, filling the gap of his silence and ostentatiously maneuvering to help him out. Do you know her? Don't you like her? Matt started to speak, cleared his throat, and halted. At last, in desperation, he blurted out, For 2 cents, Frona, I'd lay ye across me knee. She laughed. You don't dare. I'm not running bare-legged at Dyea. Now don't be teasing, he blarneyed. I'm not teasing. Don't you like her, Lucille? And what of it? He challenged brazenly. Just what I asked. What of it? Then I'll tell ye in plain words, from a man old enough to be your father. 'Tis undacent, damnably undacent, for a man to kape company with a good young girl."
"Thank you," she laughed, dropping a courtesy. Then she added, half in bitterness, "There have been others who—"
"Name me the man," he cried hotly.
There, go on. You were saying—"
"That it's a cryin' shame for a man to kape company with you, and at the same time be chake by jowl with a woman of her stamp."
"And why?"
"To come drippin' from the muck to dirty your clanness, and ye can ask why."
"But wait, Matt, wait a moment. Granting your premises—"
"Little I know iv premises," he growled. "'Tis facts I'm dalin' with."
Frona bit her lip. "Never mind. Have it as you will. But let me go on, and I will deal with facts, too. When did you last see Lucille?"
"And why are ye askin'?" he demanded suspiciously.
"Never mind why. The fact."
"Well, thin, the fore part of last night, and much good may it do ye."
"And danced with her?"
"A rollickin' Virginia reel, and not sayin' a word of a quadrille or so. 'Tis at square dances I excel meself."
Frona walked on in a simulated brown study, no sound going up from the twain save the complaint of the snow under their moccasins.
"Well, then?" he questioned uneasily. "And what iv it?" he insisted after another silence.
"Oh, nothing," she answered. "I was just wondering which was the muckiest, Mr. St. Vincent or you, or myself, with whom you have both been cheek by jowl." Now McCarthy was unversed in the virtues of social wisdom, and though he felt somehow the error of her position, he could not put it into definite thought, so he steered wisely, if weakly, out of danger.
"It's gettin' mad ye are with your old Matt," he insinuated, "who has your own good at heart, and because of it makes a fool of himself."
"No, I'm not."
"But ye are."
"There," leaning swiftly to him and kissing him. "How could I remember the D.A. days and be angry?"
"Ah, Frona, darlin', well may ye say it. I'm the dust of the dirt under your feet, and ye may walk on me, anything save get mad. I could die for ye, swing for ye, to make ye happy. I could kill the man that gave ye sorrow, were it but a thimbleful, and go plump into hell with a smile on me face and joy in me heart."
They had halted before her door, and she pressed his arm gratefully. "I am not angry, Matt, but with the exception of my father, you are the only person I would have permitted to talk to me about this affair in the way you have. And though I like you, Matt, love you better than ever, I shall nevertheless be very angry if you mention it again. You have no right. It is something that concerns me alone, and it is wrong of you."
"To prevent ye walkin' blind into danger?"
"If you wish to put it that way, yes." He growled deep down in his throat. "What is it you are saying?" she asked.
"That ye may shut me mouth, but ye can't bind me arm."
"But you mustn't, Matt, dear. You mustn't." Again he answered with a subterranean murmur. "And I want you to promise me now that you will not interfere in my life that way, by word or deed."
"I'll not promise."
"But you must."
"I'll not. Further, it's gettin' cold on the stoop, and ye'll be frostin' your toes, the pink little toes I fished splinters out iv at D.A. So it's in with ye, Frona girl, and good night."
He thrust her inside and departed. When he reached the corner, he stopped suddenly and regarded his shadow on the snow.
"Matt McCarthy, you're a damn fool. Who iver heard of a Wells not knowing their own mind? As though ye've never had dalins with the stiff-necked breed, ye calamitous son of misfortune."
Then he went his way, still growling deeply, and at every growl the curious wolf dog at his heels bristled and bared its fangs. End of Chapter 16. Read by Don W. Jenkins, Rancho San Diego, California. shaggybark.blogspot.com